Live on DSTV channel 421, Go TV channel 125. This is Joy News Prime. I am Emefa Apawu. In the next 60 minutes, majority and minority leaders trade words over the impending by-election at Aston North, with Dr. Atuforsin charging the EC and police to ensure there's no repeat of the Ayawaso West Wogon by-election. Also focus on running your presidential race while I focus on my parliamentary leadership job. Majority Chief Whip Frank Anodompre fires Kennedy Ejepong in fresh feud. Also, ECG confident will avert a possible doomsday as independent power producers are not likely to shut their plants in 3 weeks as the power distributor reaches an agreement to restructure their debts. And Speaker of Parliament Alban Bagbin's official SIM card has been deactivated, Sam George claims, ahead of Communications Minister's briefing Parliament tomorrow on the SIM card re-registration exercise. We settle for details now in our very first story. Minority Leader Dr. Atuforsin and his counterpart Majority Leader Osechi Mensah-Bonsu have traded words ahead of the Aston North by-election. The two also exchanged words on the IMF deal finalized only a few weeks back as Parliament returned from its 2-month-long break today. Kweku Asante, our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent, has the rest of the story.
The minority leader, Dr. Atuforsin, had said the Electoral Commission must act as a truly independent constitutional body in the organization of the upcoming by-election at Aston North and not as an appendage of the NPP. The minority leader also tasked the IGP to ensure an orderly and violence-free election.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we are urging the IGP and the chairperson of the Electoral Commission to ensure that the by-elections are free, fair and incident-free, just like the NDC primaries. We do not want and cannot afford another Ayawaso West wagon incident.
But the majority leader, Osechi Mensah-Bonsu, hit back, having none of that, insisting the NDC has no right to speak about violence during by-elections.
For my colleague to send us back and say that we should not allow what happened at Ayawaso West to happen again in the next by-election, to me, I think is not a statement that ought to have been made. Because if you're talking about the most violent by-election that we have had in this country, it was at Tripoli when 7 people were shot at point blank by an operative from the castle. You have the courage to talk about violence in by-elections.
Both leaders also traded words over the recent IMF deal.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, a few weeks ago, the government led by the minister responsible for finance announced with pomp and pageantry the conclusion of the IMF deal. The minister responsible for finance claimed that the deal was reached in a record time, and therefore he and the government must be commended. After grossly mismanaged the Ghanaian economy and subsequently running to the IMF support, they are arrogantly asking Ghanaians to pat them at the back for alleged early conclusion of IMF.
At the time, when they sprinted to the IMF, there was no COVID. There was a self-inflicted doomsday on this country, attributable to you. Mr. Speaker, you should be careful when you begin to sing dirges. As I told you the other day, the accounts have an adage which goes that Yaria a bo kokosechi, a man the timu pie, se bo akwa adenda and go uye.
The scenes in Parliament today set stage for what is expected to happen in the next 2 months as Parliament sit. This is a meeting where Parliament will consider mid-year budget review and potential review of the estimates they passed in the preceding year. But these scenes, as we saw in Parliament, the both leaders on the aisle exchanging words on such key contentious matters is setting the stage for what is expected to happen. Today we expected that Parliament would approved Gertrude Esaba Tokuno to become the new Chief Justice after both sides on the vetting committee unanimously approved her nomination. But that did not come to the floor, although the report of the appointment committee has now been laid. We are expecting that before the close of the week, that report will be taken and then a decision will now be taken. Reporting for Joy News, Kwadwo Asante, Parliament House, Accra.
Well, the deposed MP for Aston North, James Gyakye, was on Tuesday giving a rousing welcoming his constituency ahead of his campaign launch on Wednesday. Party bigwigs from both the NPP and NDC we know have thronged the constituency as the campaigns heat up. Residents have expressed joy and surprise at the speed with which many developmental projects are springing up in the constituency. Richard Kwadwo has been gauging the mood in the constituency.
Deposed Aston North Member of Parliament Joe Gyakye on a jolly ride home. He seems excited and confident of victory in the constituency by-elections. The Aston North NDC members massed up on the street to give him an unrestrained welcome at Aston Breku, the district capital. According to the party leadership, Joe Gyakye will use the opportunity to launch the campaign ahead of the by-elections. Thousands of the party members also gathered at Aston Akonfode on a 2-mile walk with Mr. Kwesi.
And then make sure you say you balance near the whole world. I mean the whole world.
We are looking forward to voting for him again. If they say he is not qualified, then the president is also not qualified because Mr. Kwesi voted for the speaker that swore the president into office. We are rooting for Boga 1. We need no other person. Meanwhile, there is massive road construction works in the Aston North constituency currently. The road construction that stalled after the 2020 general elections has resumed. The constituents say they are amazed at the speed of light with which such developments are springing up.
If you look at the emergence of this development that is going on right now, you cannot see anything but to attribute it to the by-election. I've lived in this constituency, specifically as in Breku here, where you are seeing this development going on. And in 2020, or prior to the 2020 election, we had this same, contractor come on site with his machines. And just after the 2020 election, when the then MP, Honorable Abnadura Mensah, who was on the ticket of the MPP, lost the election, we never saw these machines again. So you cannot tell me that it is not for this by-election that these machines has come back to site, but then attribute it to the by-election.
If you can see the excavators, they have been there from 2020. And then if you go to the AstroTurf, it started last year. If you go to the One District, One Factory, the same thing last year. And if you see the pace of work in some of them, some of the contractors have money, so their work almost goes quickly. Some of them too, because of financial issues, they are unable to progress that fast.
The new patriotic party is expected to hold its parliamentary primaries in the constituency on Wednesday to elect a parliamentary candidate that will face off with NDC's candidate Joe Gyakye. Reporting for Joy News, Richard Kwadwo, Aston North constituency.
Well, there's been concerns raised about the eligibility of the NPP candidate who is likely to emerge winner of the primaries that will be held tomorrow. There are concerns that were raised, and a statement earlier from the National Communications Officer of the NDC has elicited a response from the Electoral Commission moments ago. And that's the statement on your screen, and it says eligibility of qualified NPP parliamentary aspirants in the Aston North by-election. And it says the attention of the Electoral Commission has been drawn to another another misleading statement by the National Communications Officer of the NDC. The Commission, in its previous response, the National Communication Officer stated that per Article 94 of the 1992 Constitution, a person qualifies to contest as a candidate for the parliamentary election. So it goes on to say that the National Communications Officer of the NDC, in his response, makes the claim that the EC only relied on the 1992 Constitution to make the case that a person needs not be a registered voter in the constituency he or she intends to stand for election. He assessed that the EC should have also relied on the CI 127 and in particular the nomination form containing CI 127 before arriving at the conclusion that the person needs not be a registered voter in the same constituency. So it goes on. It's been giving a background in terms of what Sammy Ejimfi has been saying, and asked that for the benefit of the public, the nomination form states as follows: we, the undersigned registered voters in dash constituency, do hereby nominate of the same constituency to stand for election as a member of parliament, and we hereby certify that to the best of our knowledge, he or she is qualified to be elected as such. So that's what's on the nomination form, and says, was Sammy Ejimfi not aware of this phrase of the same constituency on the nomination form before allowing their candidate for the Kumewu by-election, who is not a registered voter in Kumewu, to contest for the recent by-election? For the information of the general public, the NDC candidate for the recent by-election, Kwesi Amankwa, is not a registered voter in the Kumewu constituency. He is a registered voter in the Ayawaso West Wogon constituency in the Greater Accra region. Yet, he contested in the Kumewu by-election because he hails from there. Why didn't the NDC raise this issue ahead of the Kumewu by-election? And asked that the fact still remains that the allegation by Sammy Ejimfi to the effect that the EC is working with the NPP to sneak an unregistered voter into the Aston North register is false. It is untrue, and we call on Sammy Ejimfi to prove this. And goes on with the background that over the years, Sammy Ejimfi and his party have put out false claims aimed at maligning the integrity of the EC. This was evident in their petition to the Supreme Court after the 2020 elections, alleging they had won the elections. And in conclusion, it says, as a commission, we remain committed to conducting transparent, peaceful, and credible elections, and we will devote our time to fulfilling our constitutional mandate, having provided the public with the truth on this matter. That's a statement from Ghana's Electoral Commission. Now, on to some other stories, and we take you to Parliament. They've been resuming today, and it's been without a lot of controversy and drama. And Majority Chief Whip Frank Anodompre has fired at his colleague NPP MP and presidential candidate aspirant Kennedy Ohene-Agyapong, asking him to focus on his campaign and leave him alone. According to Frank Anodompre, Kennedy Agyapong has been telling people that he has said that the Aston Central MP is not a presidential material. But Frank Anodompre says he has no time to engage in such talks.
My good friend, the Honorable Kennedy Agyapong, making all manner of allegations against me. But specifically, he's saying that I am referring to him as not fit for president, not a presidential candidate. In fact, he's one of the senior members of this House that I respect. And on many occasions that we've had tense moments between the two sides, he's intervened. And so I have a great deal of respect for him. When he visited my constituency, I went, I paid for the venue, I hosted him. I spoke very highly of him, even though later some of his boys skewed and took part of the video and said that I have endorsed him against a known fact that I am, all out for Dr. Bawumia. But what I want to say is that it's never true. I can never describe him as somebody not fit for president. When he came to his home, I listened to him carefully. If you listen to his messages, one of the message lines were that he raised issues which are either rumor or things that people are raising against him, and that he would deal with it. One of the things he raised was that people are saying that he's not fit for president. And so he raised it himself, preempted it, and dealt with it. Me, I'm sitting mine somewhere, as will be described. Only for me to hear now I'm not the punching bag. Me being punched by him because in his own estimation, he has heard that somebody says I had said that he's not fit for president. I think it's most unfortunate. First of all, if you hear an allegation, you should have at least called me. Now, I have to speak to you through this medium because several efforts to reach out to him has proved, unfortunately, futile. I feel a bit hurt. I feel very hurt because for anybody who knows me, I don't do politics of attack. Even my opponents, I don't attack them. How much more somebody who is one of our own fold. So I will challenge my good friend. Normally, I won't do this. I want to challenge him. If there is anybody that I have spoken to say that he is not fit for president, he should mention the person's name. Then again, I will also advise him. He should leave me. I'm just a small fly, concentrating on my whip job in this difficult parliament. He shouldn't distract my attention. And then he should focus on his presidential campaign bid. And leave me alone. Let me concentrate on my whip job. I have a lot of responsibilities and a lot of job to do. Ordinarily, I would not have responded through this medium. But I hear the thing has gone far and people are making... I've received more than 100 calls today. People are asking me, do you have a beef with Ken in Japan and all that? You want to be president. I didn't ask you to go and contest. So he should simply focus on his presidential bid.
We'll stay a while longer in Parliament because the Deputy Ranking Member on the Communications Committee, Sam George, says the official SIM card of the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbin, registered in the name of Parliament, has been deactivated despite it being fully registered. According to the MP, this exposes the flaws in the current blockage of SIM cards by the NCA due to their failure to re-register their SIM cards. Minister, or the Communications Minister, Owusu, is set to brief MPs on the matter tomorrow. But Sam George says persons whose SIM card have been blocked unjustly must be unblocked.
We should have had this briefing today, if possible, because we are talking about over 8 million SIM cards that have been disconnected, including even the SIM card of the Speaker of Parliament, not the Deputy, but the Speaker of Parliament himself. His official SIM card was disconnected, even though it was registered in the name of Parliament of Ghana. We have judges, we have lawyers, we have doctors, MPs whose SIM cards were disconnected. Even me, my SIM card was disconnected. Our SIM cards were disconnected. But I'm the honorable member of Parliament for Ningo Program, elected member. And the elected parliamentary candidate for the NDC again.
And the leader of the Stubborn Academy. The leader of the Stubborn Academy.
The dean of Stubborn Academy. Mr. Speaker, no. The Stubborn Academy is insisting that the National Identification Authority must provide us Ghana cards. Because, Mr. Speaker, it is important that the minister briefs this House, even if possible today, because people's livelihoods have been affected. And people's money they use for their transactions has been stuck. You understand me? On their cards. And Mr. Speaker, it is important that this House takes into consideration that the National Identification Authority has failed to issue any Ghanaian citizen a Ghana card in any district NIA office since December 2022. And so it is not the fault of the Stubborn Academy that we've not been able to register our SIM cards. It is not the fault of any Ghanaian that they have not been able to register SIM cards.
Now, away from Parliament, the Electricity Company of Ghana says it is confident they will avert a possible doomsday after reaching an agreement with the independent power producers, that's the IPPs, to restructure their debt. Well, it follows announcement by the IPPs its members will shut down their plants in 3 weeks if government fails to meet their demands. They are owed at least $1.4 billion, and government has so far been working around the clock to get them to agree to have these debts restructured. CEO of the chamber, Afetogbo, says the delayed payment of their debt is stifling the operations of its members.
Our conditions or severity of our situation is something that cannot be negotiated. We have done everything possible to manage the situation, but it has gone beyond our control. So really nothing has changed. Our ultimatum to government, that is the June 30th, is still standing. we cannot overstretch ourselves. We cannot stretch ourselves beyond June 30th.
If the payments are not made available, what then is likely to happen?
We have overstretched ourselves. What we are able to do is what can carry us to the end of June and cannot go beyond. So let me say the position stands. There is nothing we could do about it. We have cases in the past whereby anytime we are pressed with time, we approach government in this manner. Government will come in and make some small payment to us. Then we will go back and say that, oh, let's keep the faith. But I think this case, we have serious cases in hand. Most of our IPPs have defaulted in their loan repayment, their creditors here and there. Pursuing them, the kind of facilities we have with these private lenders, which is, if it is about 1 month to the time, you will start receiving reminders that failure to pay your loan or your loan on due dates, these are the penal clauses for what we have signed for, which we do not have any option. And most of us have defaulted. And this is the case, the situation we found ourselves in.
What would you say to any Ghanaian, an average Ghanaian out there who says, okay, if our powers go out or if there's blackout, we blame the IPPs for it?
This is not something that we expect to happen, but let me say it's a communal labor. Let everyone join hands to impress on government to make the monies available to us to keep our lights on.
We can now hear from the Managing Director of the Electricity Company of Ghana, who assures that the situation in terms of getting to a doomsday situation will be averted.
Oh, we are open to any kind of audit. I can tell you that these things has happened time and again. Auditing of our invoices. Let me tell you,
had very, very productive discussions and they would not go off. With all confidence.
So we should ignore all this, we'll go off.
So I would say ignore, because we do owe them. So I would say ignore, but what I'll say is that the conversations are far advanced to avert something like this. And so I can say with all confidence that it won't come to that.
So what have you agreed on currently?
So, as I said earlier, there are a few NDAs in place, but let me give you a small whole. We are trying to find a way to make sure that the money expected of us to pay is reasonable and is within our reach. Because what IMF is saying that ring-fence legacy debt, but you have to stay current. If those excess and idle capacity charges are still existent, we cannot be current, because we will still be punching above our weight limit. So we need to find a way with all of them at the table to agree on an amount or a tariff that halts these excess payments for a longer period of time, and then we can consider it in a different form for them.
Let me understand something, because I know that in many of these negotiations we're looking at part of the reason they would have this take or pay is also to recover the amount they spent in constructing. I know as you negotiate, you probably would have said, okay, based on the recoveries made so far, we can now begin to look at a reduction. Have these IPPs recovered the cost of building their plants based on which you're pushing for a reduction?
So, in fairness, everybody has a different way of how they set up the plant.
Yeah.
Some of them self-financed, so they don't really have lenders that are disturbing them. Others have lenders that are disturbing them. As I said, everybody's problem is different. But holistically, what we have to look at is this. Let's look at Ghana's base load now. When you talk base load, you want to know about the barest minimum of power. Now, if you look at going forward, what would Ghana need in the next 4 or 5 years? You understand? Can we afford to do away with these guys? No. If you look at the current market trend, we cannot afford not to do away with these guys. I see this as a very unique opportunity for all of us to sit around the table and fix this problem together. Because let's not forget, tomorrow I might not be there. Tomorrow you also will not be there. But somebody else comes to take over and this problem still persists. That means we didn't do ourselves any favors. It's a unique situation where the IPPs understand the situation of the government. ECG understands the situation on the ground. So let's all sit together and get to a figure that works. That would help you with your financing. That would also help you, will help with the lenders of those who brought their money in to help them.
Energy expert and former CEO of the Volta River Authority, Dr. Charles Rekubrobe, wants the energy sector completely depoliticized.
It is so politicized. One of the first things I would say is that going forward, we should actually depoliticize demand provision, the signing of PPAs, etc., etc. Years ago, when the DRA was a power generator and therefore was responsible for demand and forecasting and supply, they did the negotiations with IPPs, etc., and they actually did this on a tender basis to ensure that whoever we contracted provided us with the best possible pricing. And more importantly, they looked into the future to ensure that we did the contracting 5, 6, 7 years ahead, so we didn't run into emergency situations as we seem to be doing. I am on record as saying that if you think power is expensive, buy candles. Because per kilowatt hour, you find that candles cost about 3 or 4 times more. We have no choice but to ensure that we recover the full cost of power provision, and that's why we have a solution of 3 yearly adjustment followed by automatic. We have no problem in dealing with that.
While in a related development, the minority in parliament are waging a relentless war against the former World Bank country director Pierre-Frank Laporte following his comments about power agreements signed under the NDC government. The World Bank country director criticized the country for doing a poor job in concluding power purchase agreements signed between 2012 and 2023. But the minority says Mr. Laporte is veering off into local politics and must stay away. John Jinapo is minority spokesperson on Mines and Energy.
Ghanaians are sick and tired of this unnecessary and flimsy blame game strategy adopted by this government and their hirelings. President Akufo-Addo and his head of the economic management team, Dr. Bawumia, must accept responsibility, demonstrate leadership, and find reasonable solutions to the current economic hardship confronting the ordinary Ghanaian on a daily basis. President Mahama's record in the energy sector is unmatched. President Mahama, before leaving office, ensured that we had a comprehensive foothold, i.e., on the generation, on fuel, and on the financial sector. We finally wish to advise the World Bank country director, Mr. Laporte, to continue to work as a technocrat and not meddle himself in the field of politics. Mr. Laporte, you are not a politician. And when you are making such unsubstantiated comments, you must bear in mind that it has far-reaching ramifications on this country. The minority will continue to hold its chest high, will continue to defend the track record of President Mahama and the NDC administration, because our record is unmatched, is unparalleled, and that is nothing but the truth.
Well, John Jinapo, who is also a former deputy power minister, says the John Mahama government did no wrong in signing those agreements and were in the country's best interest. He insists that despite the current government criticizing John Mahama for those contracts, it is still extending the contract duration of some of these contracts.
Let us educate all. The capacity charges are nothing but standardized and regulated industry tools used by electricity utilities to recover infrastructure expansion costs and development costs. Indeed, the right term is capital recovery. And for your information, even before President Mahama, most of the thermal plants had capacity charges. Just to cite a few examples, Asogli had capacity charges, TICO has capacity charges, Sen Power has capacity charges, Senate has capacity charges, TT2PP has capacity charges. And so capacity charge or capital recovery is not new. But even more importantly, after President Mahama left office, the MPP government, the current MPP government, has signed PPAs that has take or pay or capacity charges embedded in them. You'll recall that President Mahama brought in the AXA plant which is a 370 megawatt plant. We signed it for 5 years. That was during emergency. Immediately the contract expired around June, July. 2 months after, this current NPP administration signed a new contract for the same plant, extending the years from 5 years to 15 good years. Not only did they extend it to 15 years, if you read the contract contains take or pay clauses or capacity charges.
But the World Bank Country Director Frank Pierre-Laporte says such controversies come with the position he occupies.
Honorable Minister, ladies and gentlemen, I will bring my work to Ghana, to a close in a few months. And I must say that it's been a blessing for me and to my family to have been in Ghana in the past 4 years. Talk of controversy, I know I've been at the center of some controversies recently, but that's part of the job. I just wish the media would be a bit more frank and honest in the reporting, but like I say, we work for that and we live for that. I have received tremendous support, Minister, from you, and I am grateful for the love of the Ghanaian people. Personally, I think most of you know I'm from Seychelles, working Prempeh was exiled for over 30 years, so I'm really Ghanaian somewhere. Mr. I have enjoyed a great partnership with you and the government of Ghana, particularly colleagues of your ministry and yourself. As I prepare to leave the country soon, I hope that the restoration of the Ghanaian economy to the pre-crisis level will provide the government with the requisite fiscal space to increase investment in health.
That's Frank Pierre-Laporte there, the World Bank Country Director, taking us on a quick break here on Joy News Prime. We're right back with more. Please stay. This is Joy News Prime. Many thanks for staying with us. Now, Acting Chief Justice Victor Jones Doche says attempts were made by some persons to disrupt his relationship with former Chief Justice Kwesi Anini-Yeboah. This, he insists, did not work, and he continues to enjoy a cordial relationship with a retired judge. The two were tipped for the role of Chief Justice barely 3 years ago, but Justice Anini-Yeboah got the nod. Justice Jones Doche has, since the retirement of Justice Anini-Yeboah, been serving as the Acting Chief Justice. Well, he also retires in barely 48 hours, and in a ceremony to honor him, the Chief Justice designate Gertrude Tokono and a host of key individuals in the legal fraternity had some kind words for him. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable has more.
In a colorful ceremony with all who matter in the legal fraternity present, Justice Victor Jones Maulon Doche was celebrated.
It is important to state that as a true leader, Justice Doche had confidence to stand alone and the courage to make tough decisions. Perhaps at these times, the only thing that mattered to him was the integrity of his action.
Every good judge is going to be remembered by the judgments that he has delivered. And so how can I not say that you will never be forgotten? Because in every facet of the law, every aspect of the law, from thought through jurisprudence, criminal law, everything, everybody who wants to read about you will have something to refer to.
And when you read the reports, you will know that I disagreed with him on a number of occasions. But he does it, and he keeps his friendship, he keeps his good relationships, and there is a lot I learned from him.
I have told him that I've prayed away this day. I never wished that this day was going to come. I don't know what his plans are and who he will entrust me to. Otherwise, I feel really orphaned.
I know you deserve this retirement, but like someone has suggested, please write a book. Maybe our names will be mentioned along the line somewhere, so I also take some credit for it.
Chief Justice designate Gertrude Tokono described him as a pillar that will forever be missed.
I have watched with admiration his keen and unflagging intelligence and alertness, his depth of preparation, and the clarity and wisdom with which he leads and presides over panels, and the Supreme Court as President of the Supreme Court. These qualities have been deployed daily in the service of the nation, sometimes without the public noticing and appreciating.
Justice Doche used the occasion to touch on some national issues of concern to him.
I heard a Greater Accra minister order somewhere 2 years ago that they should not apply on major roads, but it appears nobody has been listening to him. Urgent steps are needed to sanitize the regulatory and control mechanisms in respect of these tricycles before they go out of hand. Same regime as applied to the motor riders called Okada. I believe that Accra can still be the most cleanest city in Africa, but we are not living up to it. Sanitation must be dealt with as a national crusade at the metropolitan, municipal, and district levels. The filth in our communities must be reduced or eliminated. The police MTTU must be fully equipped to deal promptly with errant drivers with the introduction of the on-the-spot fines. In cases of specific driving offenses like if you jump the red light, overspeeding, driving on the shoulders of the road, etc. It is the delay in getting these cases prosecuted and sent to court that allows the corruption. So if you allow them to give spot fines as happens elsewhere, I think we shall go somewhere in the discipline on our roads.
He also talked about his relationship with former Chief Justices.
I cannot thank Chief Justice Wood well enough. Most of you who have stayed here for long know the relationship between us. We work very hard. I work for her with dedication. The same applies to Ms. Sofia Akufo. Also work closely with her. And the same applies to Justice Eni Yeboah. Justice Eni Yeboah met me in Commonwealth Hall in 1976. I was then in my final year for the LLB. And we are great friends. We have a name for ourselves.
I bet you wanted to know what the name is, but let's move on to some other stories now. And Fatima Adams is a midwife with 7 years of experience. Before today, she has only read it in books or heard it on conversations, but never has it occurred to her that she will one day be part of that storyline. A pregnant woman who joined the vehicle midway showed signs of labor and started screaming for help. Adams Fatima felt her pain and voluntarily moved in to help her deliver that bouncy baby boy on a speeding vehicle. Joy News Upper West Regional Correspondent Rafiq Salam caught up with her and has come through with this report.
It's very fulfilling and joyous. In fact, since my 7 years of midwifery, today is my most fulfilling moment because I feel like I have saved a mother at her vulnerable state.
Adam Fatimata recounted what transpired in this 9 seconds amateur viral video taken inside a westbound fast-moving Sanyon bus.
At first, I was even panicking. I have been working in midwifery for 7 years, but when I encountered that case like that, I was panicking because I even didn't have protective garments to protect myself, like gloves and other things. But I had to use my bare hands to collect baby. I couldn't just sit and watch baby fall on the floor. I had to catch baby.
Adam Fatimata works at the Solo District Hospital as a midwife. She was on her way to work on a private commercial vehicle with 15 others, including a pregnant woman who was due for delivery and had been referred from the Kolmaha Chief's compound to the Upper West Regional Hospital. The unnamed pregnant woman who joined the vehicle from Kolmaha in the Solatuna Calabar district began to complain of abdominal and back pains after traveling some handful of kilometers.
On our way, we didn't reach Ponyentanga and she started pushing, and I had to deliver her in the car. When we got to Ponyentanga Clinic, I made the car to branch there, and we took mother and baby inside the clinic for further care.
Mind you, 1/3 of the 15 passengers on the bus were men, yet her privacy could just not have been thrown to the dogs. Seats were exchanged for a few of the women to come closer to form a human curtain to protect her privacy.
To help anybody look at you and they can say, oh, Mommy Ness, come and help, or you just got voluntarily?
No, I was seated behind her, and the labor was ongoing, and she was crying and screaming and all that, and I felt uncomfortable. I felt her pain, in fact, and her relative who was sitting by her was holding her, and I had to exchange seats with someone who was closer to her to help her relative support her. But I realized that the baby's head was coming, and there was nothing I could do than to just collect the baby with my bare hands.
Now, the last day of May this year was colored with grief following the demise of one of Africa's illustrious writers and activist, Ama Ataidu. Born on 23rd March 1942, Ama Ataidu was known for her impactful publications and advocacies on women empowerment. Days after her demise, tributes have continued to pour in, eulogizing her gallant contributions to the world of literature and humanity at large. In today's edition of Joy News Remembrance series, we bring you excerpts from her book, extracts rather, from her book, Diplomatic Pounds, read by veteran Ghanaian actor, cultural activist and filmmaker, Akofa Ejiani.
This is from Ama Ataidu's Diplomatic Pounds and Other Stories. And here's an excerpt from New Lessons. That's why I'm actively wishing him ill with a nicely rounded female kiss, that he falls hopelessly in love with that young woman, whoever she is. That would complicate things very nicely for him, wouldn't it? And in the meantime, what I've got to admit is that whoever first said nowhere cool knew exactly what they were talking about. After all, much of the time, most of the places where we are likely to live on this earth are either hot, very hot, or cold, very cold, and cool.
We're right back with the latest from the world of showbiz. Please stay on. How we end today's edition. Beautiful, segment. Always love you, Becky. Thank you so much. But your smile is always brought to you by Pepsodent. Every smile matters. So that's it for tonight's edition of Joy News Prime. Beverly Broom is up next. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. Have a good evening. Bye. Bye.